Please take your seats as we're about to start the next session, Brand Budget Buzz, how to build a diehard traders community. Join us once more on stage, Andrea Badiola Mateos, Chief Commercial Officer at Finance Magnates Group, who will introduce her panel. Please give them a warm welcome. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Despina. Thank you, everyone. Welcome once again to one of our most exciting panels this year at Finance Magnates London Summit. We're going to be talking things community, social media, and engagement of the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to ask all of our panelists, maybe we can start from this side, to introduce themselves a little bit, their company, and what they do. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gal, and I'm from X, formerly Twitter. I've been working in digital media for the past decade, and now in X, my role is a client partner, and together with my partner over here, we're leading the fintech vertical in our EMEA headquarters in Dublin.
Thank you so much, Gal.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the panel. I'm Rauan, leading international growth at TradingView. So hopefully I'll be supporting the conversation around building international as well as local communities.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm Adam Button, founder of Forex Live, and we're a live blog on the financial markets with a big community on X and many other social media. So hopefully we can talk about how we got there.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, so we're going to get the conversation started about the trends that we have been seeing throughout 2023. I know from our end on Finance Magnates and Forex Live, we have seen very high demand from everybody around the globe, all sorts of clients, talking and discussing on and on about community, the importance of community building. Why is community building such a trend this year? What is different?
Okay, well, I think that we live in a post-COVID world, and people are looking for this unfiltered connection and have authentic experience with other people who shared their interests. And a lot of people, and I will take it to my world, have been working from home, and their communities are online. And it's not just about the people, it's also around the brands and different companies that understand that they need a direct relationship with their customers, with their audience. And this is why communities, I think, is so important for both the customers and the brands themselves.
Everyone.
I believe it's worth mentioning that community is essential for working on a churn and making the user returning one. I consider in our platform experience, on average, every user returns 6 times per day for a session, and I believe that the social element is an important part for making it return and visit and come back and participate more actively.
I mentioned from the trading side, what strikes me about community is that it works in a lot of ways. I mean, we were on panels here a few years ago, or I was on one talking a lot about copy trading, which it's still a good business, but people, I think, want that connection either with somebody who they're kind of following, in any kind of community, they're leaders and followers, and just the way that people interact in the real world, it works online. I think more and more people are looking for that, either for the conviction of or asking questions or getting kind of feedback. And so I think you see traders gravitating towards it mostly because it works, or because it just provides a sense of kind of reflection and something to do in the kind of long slog of trading.
Also maybe because historically speaking, legacy brands until the internet came along, and after that social media, etc., they were used to a one-way communication with the brands where they were feeding a customer representative, and maybe they had an offline communication with that one representative, but they probably didn't feel that they were being heard by the brand itself, or that other people like them were being heard. Whereas now, this is open, it's accessible to everybody, and what brands are trying to push is this interactivity where they make the customer feel part of the brand, so they loyalize it, in a sense, what you were saying as well, Rauan, that it becomes part of the company.
I think it's also about the customer being part of the brand, but it's also the brand being a part of the community. We can see that brands that are tapping into the conversation that is going inside the financial community on X, and specifically on X, the financial community is very much alive. In topics like as financial and fintech and crypto and blockchain, we have very live communities going on, and we see when brands are interacting with their audience, they're gaining more than loyalty, but they are part of the community, and they can also be a community leader, and it's very important for brands to make that interaction with the customers. So I think it's important for both the customer and the brand itself.
So you would say that that's one of the do's that you would recommend brands to actually do when they are trying to build community, etc., would be to interact on social media platforms and otherwise with the users themselves. What are the other do's and don'ts that any of you would recommend for somebody that is trying to build community, either if they already have a small one or if they're starting from scratch? What would be the way to go for them?
I agree that we should not underestimate the importance of curating the social content, because of course you can generate an impressive volume of interaction and make the community engaging, but at the same time it's fair to expect the majority of participants providing just brief up to the moment updates, which may be not enough to support the conversation. So that's I agree here with Gal that it's extremely important to manage and curate the content driven from the brand, from the company perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I find that what's really different right now, or what's changing, or what's changed since we've been doing it at Forex Live, maybe 15 years now, is the tone of the conversation. I mean, you have a lot of brands now that are either indignant or very funny. I mean, everybody would like to be funny all the time, and that obviously works. It kind of finance, you had this thing where there was these whatever influencers or experts who would sort of put themselves up here and like a stilted kind of one-way conversation. And I think there's been a lot more humility in the kind of the back and forth with social that I think it really resonates with people. But again, it's tough when you're in sort of the money business or you're talking about politics, not to alienate people. I mean, this is something we deal with all the time. You're covering an election or anything that's contentious, that's moving markets, and it offends people. So you're always trying to walk this line where you're trying to be a real person, and when you're interacting with people, you're sometimes just wrong, or you make mistakes because you're talking about so many things. You're so out there. But I feel the audience has changed and has become much more forgiving of sort of real people acting kind of as brand ambassadors, and brands sort of joking around even with other brands or not taking themselves quite as seriously. And it's a very tough, if you're in the financial business, balance to find. And I think that it's a really interesting space right now in finding out what works with that.
I think users want to hear from the brands. They are looking for different brands and companies to not just interact with them, but also to respond to different trends. And especially when we're talking about financial trends, they are looking for brands to respond to what's going on. So if we have a big financial trend that is going on right now, as a brand, you should connect with your audience within this financial community and comment on that, and also respond as the brand. And we see that brands that are creative, both creative but also relevant talking about relevant things and response in a timely manner, those would be the brands winning the game. Those will be the brands getting the awareness, getting their ad recall, getting their consideration from the audience. So I think that this brand interaction is really, really important. And especially on X, it's a platform where everyone goes to see what is happening right now. They're living their daily lives on X, communicating with other users regarding their interests, and where brands can tap into this conversation, they gain cultural relevance. And cultural relevance for brands is really, really important. Yeah. No, go ahead.
I can support here that X is an excellent example of a correct way of engaging the large audience and very interactive community through short and simple reactions, so the reactive type of communication. However, from the other side, from the company perspective, from the brand side, it is certainly worth investing in the more difficult formats of the content, i.e. videos or streams. Again, referring to our stats, we see that the best lead acquisition which is happening on the platform is normally with the brokerages who prefer to invest and do extra efforts for the streams as compared to just posting ideas or minds. So that we as brands produce stronger and slower content than the larger community responds in a short and fast way.
So I think that everybody agrees on different ways that the brands can interact with the users to engage the community. Is there anything that you would tell them do not do? Stay away from these policies, stay away from these. I can think of a few, but I don't want to spoil it.
I mean, there's a lot of, it's sort of your risk right now is how far you want to go. I mean, we have kind of an established brand, and how far do you want to go into memes, or how far do you want to go down kind of TikTok-ish content? One of the things that really does work is just stealing content. You find something on a different platform, and you see it all the time on Twitter. They'll just take TikTok videos and repost it, and you get engagement, right? Now, is like your goal just to grow a following? I mean, do you have, what are you really trying to do? A lot of, time employees, it's just, well, let's just get the numbers up. Let's get 250,000 followers, and then we'll do something with it, right? Or we'll sell something on there. I don't know if you really want to build a brand that way, if you're building a really strong brand like that, or you can sustain a brand like that. I mean, ultimately, you have to have a voice with what you're trying to do as a business. If you look at TradingView, it's it's charts, it's technical analysis, it's that people sharing that easily, right? Whereas with us, it's sort of macro commentary, more thoughtful commentary about kind of what's happening, and kind of hot takes at the same time. But do you want to wade into every single issue that's out there, or kind of pick your battles? And I don't think there's really a wrong answer. I mean, ultimately what works is a lot of content, putting yourself out there a lot. But that, at the end of the day, that's an investment of time and energy.
Can I suggest briefly to stay away from AI-generated content? I'm quite sure that most of the people have tried implementing or at least testing it, but that's certainly easily recognized. And just as an idea for a similar way as we are having diff checker for checking for plagiarism, I think it would be helpful and mindful from the larger platforms to implement some, similar to community notes, some service that would suggest that the content is AI generated, so that users can be aware that this is not compared to the manually produced one.
I agree with what's said about brand needing to find their own voice. And I also agree that you can't just, maybe do a big campaign or gaining that many followers and then you don't know what to do with them. Because this is something that needs to be maintained, being both organically and on unpaid advertising be active. And it's what's distinguishing brands that are leading the community from brands that aren't.
Yes, I think that there is a big sense of using the user's experience, and on the note of the content-generated AI, I would add, though, that I think the usage of AI is not something we can prevent in general. I think it's something that everybody has adopted in a way or another, but it needs to be unique. And it needs to be a tool, not a replacement of what the brands are doing and the way brands are using AI. I would ask you, we're talking a lot about, how to go about it and the do's, but drilling a little bit deeper, would you say that a brand, let's say a startup that is just creating their brand and needs to go on and about and it has very clear that I need to have a community, should they go global or should they go local, and why?
Well, my ideal answer would be both. If you are a global brand that is looking for a global audience, then you should connect to your audience on global trends and on global events. However, you should also localize your message and connect with your audience on things that are, I would say, close to home. And then I believe a brand that is able to do both and have an adjustment for both global presence. However, they're also connecting on a local aspect, even with the language or the message being adjusted locally as well. I believe they can gain loyal audience from that move.
Speaking from prior experience, I definitely recommend going local before going global. Fair to say that one of the reasons behind early success of TradingView has been immediately focusing on deep localization of the platform, including the communication with the communities. One thing that we've noticed that, let's say, Thai, Japanese, or Indonesian community were not picking up perfectly available platform unless we've made it functional and also communicable in the local language. But then after some time, an interesting point happens. Once the audience grows, they naturally start moving from the local to the global version as they recognize the availability of larger content space, immediate updates, both functional and content-wise. I believe that would be the correct way to develop it that way. So use the local communication primarily for user acquisition, and then for the continuous community engagement, that would be focused on the global. But that should work as a shift.
Yeah, as a startup, I like the idea of finding something local or finding some sort of angle to build a community to start with. It's an interesting question because traders, it's more multi-asset than ever right now. We used to see a lot more hostility with crypto and traditional FX, and now that's sort of fallen to the wayside, and people dabble in commodities, and people, I think, are willing, even with brokers, right? All brokers are seemingly moving to a multi-asset model. So, but then again, your conversation can just get too diverse. So you need to have a space where people can talk about, if they want to trade something that's off everyone else's radar, it can get a little bit too noisy for everyone else. So, that it's a struggle. But I think if you're building something, I think probably the place to start is local, or with at least a particular angle on global.
Yeah, I agree when it might be different when you're a startup or a well-established company, that you would need to choose maybe different markets and then localize your message. But I think also we should look more on the upper funnel level when you're building your brand, and you want people look at your brand. Some brands are sponsoring different sports teams, or they want to be associated with a certain publisher, a certain message. And that is where you can communicate with or engage with your audience on a global level. Let's say we have the Olympics next year, where you communicate with something that is interesting to everyone globally. Or you can adjust your message in a more local way, not just with the language, but also with local events. So yeah, I agree that it might be dependent also on the state that your company is at.
And let's say that the startup, fictitious startup that we're discussing, manages to build a community, engages locally, globally, etc. What does it take for a brand once they have already built a community? What does it take for them to keep it, to maintain it engaged? Because I think we will all agree it's a given that it's two very different things. Once you acquire it and then maintaining it, keeping it, what would you say in your opinion it takes to get stable growth?
I would say, and I think I mentioned this before, that cultural relevance will be the number one thing. You need to be on top of what's going on, especially in this case, in the financial market. What are the financial trends? What is your audience talking about? What are they interested about? And if you, as a brand, is able to tap into that conversation, lead the conversation, and interact with your audience and be relevant, I think this is where you can definitely get that growth.
Well, I would need to repeat myself here, but I think it's worth mentioning for the second time. Definitely worth investing both efforts and time in creating strong and difficult content. You wouldn't be able to maintain the community and persuade the audience return, especially like within the elevated competition that we are now facing, if we would rely on the shortcuts, i.e. auto-generated content, or just being funny in terms of communication type. So I guess that would be the solution.
I mean, I'd say two things. One is kind of chasing whatever the trend is, right? There's always been pressure with us at Forex Live to write more about crypto or to write more about NFTs, and I think at some point you can lose your voice there, right? Do we want to be like shitcoin.com pump operation, right? When it's the hottest thing. Markets go through these cycles, whether it's, we see what they go through, and you see it as well. And you can try to be, you might have a brand where you can try to be everything to everyone because you're providing kind of services, and we are in a way too, but we're also trying to maintain a differentiated voice. So sometimes you kind of you can't be everything to everyone, and you can't chase every story, every trend. And I think that just comes from knowing who your brand is or what it is you're into. And the second thing I would highlight is that you don't really have a community unless it's on your website. We have social everywhere, and one day X can come out and become just a different company, and suddenly what worked there doesn't work anymore. You have 250,000 followers, and they don't see what you're posting anymore. And so you have to, ultimately, I'm bullish on the web and building things kind of yourselves, or having a place that's so stripped down that you feel comfortable investing in that community, that it will still be there. And it's with all these communities and with all those brands. I mean, ultimately, the only brand you can control is your own and the tools that you've built. So you have to be mindful of investing in kind of a place that you don't own. And I think that's sort of a lesson that we've learned a few times, is that you want to hold things as close as you can and keep people on your website.
I think it's like from X perspective, I would say that X is the global town square. So, and we see people live more and more of their lives on the platform. And we've seen 300% growth in communities formation on the platform. And we see more people, more than 60% growth year over year for financial posts. And more than 30% growth for unique authors. So you have more people on the platform posting more about finance. And X as a platform also encouraged the community to have more experiences on the platform as we create and continue innovate also with payments that will be launching soon, and we have more options also for businesses when they're trying to form communities, and we really want to create this basis for businesses to be able to interact freely and in a more efficient way with their audience.
Thank you all. Since we have 4.5 minutes left, I'm going to try to fit one last question about ROI, because everything is measured nowadays. And we're talking, obviously, organic and we're talking paid, but everything is around marketing. Community is part of the marketing strategy as well. So at the end of the day, we all know that when marketing is being evaluated, well, guess what? Numbers are being asked. So how do you measure the ROI of building a community? How can you even track the activities that are taking place in order to build community? I mean, we all understand and we all agree that it's important to have a community, but how do you justify the efforts to the C-suite, for example, on why it's important to carry out all of these activities and put on these resources?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think, well, it's also from research that we've done with partners that we see that brands that have this cultural relevancy, which I've talked about before, also are getting people to purchase more, because people are actively looking. And let's say on the platform, they're looking for products, or they're looking for which product to buy, or what are people saying about a specific product. And a company or a brand that is really engaged, or people are talking about him. There can even be talking about, you're doing a paid campaign, and it's getting people to talk. People are not just talking when you respond to them or you respond to trend, they're also talking about your paid campaigns. And when you're part of the conversation and you get users to talk about you, you will also gain purchases and you'll grow your business.
So you would, sorry, just 1 second. You would associate it to the actual purchases? You would say, okay, we invested X, we got Y, literally.
Invest in X, it's nice. But we see there, yes, that there is a connection between how brands interact with their users and how they develop their cultural relevance. And the users are going through the funnel, and it increases their purchases.
Okay, thank you. Rauan.
I guess it's essential to identify in the first place which part of the funnel are you trying to address with the community as a marketing tool. For instance, if you are looking for like introducing the platform, the product, the service at the early stage, you might be willing to open it up, i.e. make it searchable, make it interactive from the very first touch point. However, if you are thinking and focusing primarily about the conversion, you might be following, let's say, the X example that Adam has mentioned, and restrict the funnel so to try and push people to move to the later stages of the engagement, i.e. after login. But of course, you need to be quite certain that people would be motivated enough, engaged enough to do those extra steps.
Yeah, what I would say to invest in real estate really is putting it in a prominent place on your website. I think people, we're Forex Live and we try to make things live, and having that kind of live back and forth in a prominent place, I think that is really a worthwhile investment. I think what's changed in the last number of years is, you get a lot of trolls on there. Is this one of the things you're always dealing with? And I think users are a little more tolerant of, although you probably get in so much trouble for people posting bad stuff or whatever. I know you're dealing with that right now, but I think a lot of that's manufactured. And in general, when people post, stupid things on our site, and they do all the time, is that people are tolerant of it, and they're kind of tolerant of, or they just have learned to ignore it, and we've just learned to just get rid of people who are problematic. But it is worth kind of wading into that kind of swamp of people, because you do get a lot of feedback that's really good for your business. And I think a lot of companies spend a lot of money just to try to get quality feedback from their users. And that has been invaluable alone in terms of the ROI, just getting people to tell you, okay, you need to do more of this, or you should have trading view charts instead of whatever else is out there. So that I think that was probably good advice.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. We've gone 19 seconds over time, but I want to ask you final thoughts and trends for 2024 in a couple of sentences.
I mean, I don't hate AI as much as I don't like. I think people can sniff out AI written content, but I think AI images are a really cool thing that people are sharing, and anything to do around images and video is just a fascinating spot to watch.
Rauan.
From my side, I'd suggest looking as you go through the local communities to see and identify if there is a more native communication tool, i.e. a local messenger, local platform, which may be a very efficient entry point to specifically target the local audience you have in your plan for the upcoming year.
Thank you. Gal?
I think that brands and companies should gain this, and it connects to what you've mentioned earlier, this full funnel approach of getting to know, to get the users to connect with you through all stages of the funnel, from the awareness and getting to know your brand, through eventually getting them to convert, and for brand to gain this interaction with their audience. And there are more and more possibilities, and especially on X, we allow our brands do it more efficiently, and it will evolve in the coming future.
Good to know. Perfect. Thank you so much, all of you. 2 minutes over time. I hope they forgive us. Big round of applause for all of our panelists. Thank you so much.